Hi, welcome to episode 423 of the Corner of Knit and Tea. My name is Laura. I'm also known as Fluffy Kira on Instagram and Twitter. I blog over at thecornerofknitandtea.com, and that's where this episode and every episode show notes will be. I have an Etsy shop called The Corner of Knit and Tea, where I sell my handspun yarns and knitting patterns. Hi, how are you? It is Monday, May 15th. And I am coming to you from just outside of Kansas City. It is a little bit on the chilly side today, mostly in the house, although it's a little cooler outside too. And the light is a little bit different. It is a little overcast. We've been having some rain and thunderstorms, and so it's generally just a cozy inside day. I'm on my lunch break, and I thought I would come and chat with you a little bit about what I am crafting. I don't have lots to share, but I thought that I would come and say hi. So you can see Norman is over there on my couch. I am still recording on my phone. I hope that the sound for this episode is better, and I will likely just continue doing this for a little while if this works. And I'm recording in landscape today, so it won't be so odd, but hopefully this will make for a good podcast. So today I am drinking birthday tea from my local tea store, which is called Tea Market. And they are at teamarketonline.com, and you can actually order from them. I believe their birthday tea is a mix of something from Harney & Sons, because a lot of their blends are that way. And it is not still my birthday. That was a couple weeks ago. But I decided it's still in the same month. So I just decided to go ahead and drink it. And actually, I finished this off, which is great. Now I have a tin, and I can just sticker over it and put something else delicious in there. So I am drinking it today in my Oy Vey all day mug, which was a gift from my mother-in-law. It makes me laugh. And then inside it also says coffee and nosh or tea and nosh. So that is what I am doing today. So I hope that you are doing well. I, as usual, did not get as much crafting done quite as I wanted to. We had a 5K and a half marathon run this weekend that we did. My husband is much more of a runner than I am. So we did that on Saturday morning, and then the rest of the weekend I got to craft a little bit. I tried sewing a little bit on my quilt and was a bit frustrated because I'm having issues getting my machine to work properly. So actually this afternoon after work, I'm going to take my machine and drop it off for cleaning and maintenance and hope that they can get it working properly. It's not quite the tensioning is off, and so I'm not getting good clean seams. And my hope is that if I drop it off with the professionals, they'll be able to clean it and get it working for me. It has been probably 6 or 7 years since it's been cleaned and serviced. And the last big thing that I made in there was dinosaur pajama pants from that fleecy dinosaur fabric. So it's probably also really dirty in there. And I could open it and clean it out a little bit with some compressed air, but I don't know that much of what I'm doing, and so I'm just going to take it and see if I can get them to get it in working order. If for any reason they can't, then I may look into buying a new machine. I'm hoping all of this will be ready and done before the Memorial Day weekend. I'm not sure it will, but I was hoping to sew that weekend. So that was a little disappointing, but I did do some knitting, and I made some significant progress actually on both projects. Not as much as I would have liked, but not bad. So let's talk about it. The first thing that I am knitting is I am test knitting a sweater for Vanessa Smith, and it is called Little Nidia. And I think I've talked about this before. I'll probably keep saying it. You'll probably keep getting bored. I made the Nidia pullover not long after it first came out. It is a top-down raglan cropped pullover with a fun kind of lace pattern involved in it, and all the details are really nice. It has lateral braids kind of marking off the sections. It's got nice detailed ribbing. The pattern was impeccably written, and I really enjoyed knitting it. And not long after that, Vanessa released the same sweater as a cardigan in a separate pattern, and now she's putting together a child-size one in of the cardigan. So this is called Little Nidia, or Little Nidia Cardigan, I guess. And I decided it would be the perfect sweater for Roxy, and the test knit is going on this month and a little bit into June. And so I thought it would be the perfect thing to knit for Roxy. So as I have showed you in the past couple weeks, I am using Malabrigo Rios, which is a DK weight yarn, and it is 210 yards per skein, 100 grams, 100% superwash merino wool. And I have used this before for my niece and nephew, and it is somewhat washable. If I were designing an heirloom sweater that I wanted to be nice forever and ever, I would definitely think about caring for it not by washing it in the washing machine. But I sympathize that my sister has 2 children and not a ton of time, and so I have knit with Malabrigo Rios before, and it washes and wears just fine. And the kids will not be in the sweaters for that many years because, of course, they're still growing quite a bit, so I don't think it's an issue. Anyway, I am using the color 133, which is Reflecting Pool, which is a really nice teal. So last time I showed you what I was working on, I was just before where I separated for the sleeves. I had I think about 16 more rows, and I have now separated for the sleeves and worked a couple inches of the body. I had hoped maybe I would be further along in the body, closer to the bottom, maybe even finished, but that definitely did not happen. So this is what I have currently. So as I said, it's a top-down raglan. It's got a really fun kind of lacy pattern that I don't want to spill too many details towards. You can find it in both of the adult patterns, and this child pattern will be forthcoming. So as you can see, I did indeed separate for the sleeves, and then I got several inches into the, well, three inches maybe into the body. I still have quite a bit more to do, but of course the raglan rows get really long right before you separate for the sleeves, so the body should go faster now. And I am still on my first 2 skeins of yarn, so I'm still in my first 400 yards. The pattern calls for around 1,000 for her size. It really is a people-sized sweater, and so I'm getting towards the end. I still have somewhat decent amounts. Like, I'll definitely get through this evening knitting, but it's almost time to start winding more skeins. I am alternating skeins every 2 rows because Malabrigo is kettle dyed, and for that reason sometimes I think there are some color differences. I don't think I see any with this. You can see it is a semi-solid. It definitely is kettle dyed, so there is kind of aside from the textural detailing in the stitch pattern, there is actually some detailing, some variegation modeling in the colors, but I don't think I'm getting the every 2 rows look, so I don't think the skeins are terribly different. So that is a little bit of a closer detail on the lace pattern, and it's basically an all-over lace pattern except for kind of the raglan lines, and then we've also got kind of an echoing of that straight line down the side. So I am going to continue working on this. I really do hope actually that this week, by the time I come see you next week, that I will have the sweater, the body finished, and be working on the sleeves. And then there is a button band that will be added after, and I ordered buttons this week. I'm trying to remember which ones I ordered. I was looking at metal buttons at first, but I think I ordered some iridescent buttons. So just some iridescent plastic. Oh, maybe I ordered the champagne colored buttons. I can't remember. I'll show you when they get here, and you will be able to you'll definitely see them when I put them on the sweater. The sweater needs to be done by June 15th. I don't anticipate that being being problematic at all. I really would actually like to finish this by the end of the month, but I guess we'll see how that goes. So again, this is Little Nidia by Vanessa Smith. The pattern will be forthcoming. My guess is shortly after the June 15th deadline. And if you're interested in knitting an adult version of the pattern, those versions are already available, both on Ravelry and on Vanessa Smith Designs website. So yes, so I am pleased with that. So I only have one other project on the needles right now. This really is going to be kind of a short podcast episode because I don't even have lots of chatty. But the other thing that I am working on is a shawl, and it is a sample knit for Zen Yarn Garden. And the shawl is called Around the Corner. It is by Stephanie Lotvin, who is Tellybean Knits. And the pattern is available both on Ravelry and on her website, so you can get it from there. And it is a triangular shawl that looks sort of vaguely log cabin-ish. If you're familiar with the way log cabin quilts are put together, you start at a center square and you build out around, and often you kind of have a light side and a dark side, and this isn't quite like that, but it's a bunch of rectangles that come together to form corners, and so this sort of looks like half of that. I guess I don't know if I'm explaining it correctly. I am using Zen Yarn Garden in their Superfine Fingering Glitter, and that is a base that is 90% superwash, superfine superwash merino that feels really, really luxurious, and then 10% stellina, which gives it a little bit of sparkle. And I am using the natural colorway, which comes in a 400 yard skein, and actually at this angle I can even see the sparkly bits. So this is just a natural undyed colorway. Like I said, it comes in 400 yards to the skein. And then I am working with one of their dyed gradients, and the gradients are 170 grams, 680 yards, and they are dyed in a gradient. They go from one end of the skein to the other. They are dyed in blanks, and then often they are put into cakes, but I am actually knitting off of a blank. So the way the blank works is that it starts kind of in this blue turquoise, and then it goes into kind of a purple, and then it goes into this bright yellow, and then it is a mirror opposite, but of course I have started working on it. I haven't gotten super far, but I've gotten a little ways. So let's talk about what it looks like. So like I said, this is a triangular shawl, and then it sort of has, to me, it looks a little bit like a log cabin, but you'll be able to see what I mean here. So it has sort of the corner section, the stripes where you're building your triangle, and then one portion of the triangle is going to stay white and one is going to have these stripes that work down the shawl, and they will pass through the gradient. So there isn't a lot of differentiation between strip 1 and strip 2 here. In the original shawl pattern, she used 6 mini skeins, so this would be great if you did have mini skeins. She used 6 mini skeins of these gradient colorways, so hers actually subtly gradiated. I think she started with pink and ended up at red, and it was 6 different sections. I am going to keep going for a ways. I'm probably going to make this a little bit bigger. It calls for, I believe, 6, so the original pattern called for 6 gradient skeins, 6 stripes, and I'm probably going to try and work it up to 10. That means my shawl is going to be a little bit bigger than in the pattern, but it is a triangular pattern, and it just has regular increases at the edges and the center on the right side rows, so you can continue sort of in pattern. Once you get the hang of this, you can continue in pattern sort of as long as you would like. So my hope is that I will work it through at least halfway through the gradient. It's not going to be a big enough shawl to get it all the way through the second half of the gradient, although I also haven't decided if I'm going to modify the ending. So basically what the shawl originally looks like is it is a neutral color in the background, and then you have your 6 gradient stripes, and you can see I've done 2 of the stripes so far. You do 6 gradient stripes, and then there is another white section at the edge of the shawl. And so my plan is to make it not only a little bit bigger, I'll do that white section, and then I can't decide if I will also do one more colored section after that. So stay tuned. I hope to get at least several more stripes done this week. For the first 2 stripes, I was able to do a stripe each night once I finished the center section, but of course as the shawl gets bigger and bigger, that will be possibly less I'll be less able to get a whole strip done in one night. I am excited because I think maybe one more stripe in the blue, and then we're going to start moving into kind of the royal blue and into the purple, and so I think the next couple stripes will be exciting. I'll get to see some color movement. You can see a little bit in person because right up here at the top it is almost a little bit greener, and then we're going into a slightly darker blue, but again, because this is one long gradient, it's not going to have clearly demarcated lines. I also chose not to vary the width of the stripe from what the pattern calls for, even though obviously I'm basically blue for both these sections, because the deal is that in this gradient, I don't really think there are clearly demarcated lines of where everything changes. I mean, you can sort of see the purple here, but you've got like teal, and then you've got kind of an indigo, and then you've got a little bit of teal, and then you've got a lot of purple, and then the purple and the yellow intersperses here, so I feel like you would not have a clean line for that. So I am following the pattern, but then adding a little extra and potentially modifying just a bit. I will be sure to tell you all about my modifications when I finish, but again, the pattern is called Around the Corner, and it is by Stephanie Lotvin of Telly Bean Knits, and this is a sample knit for Zen Yarn Garden, so eventually kits will be available, and I do really love these colors. When I hold it this way, you can see that it's a little bit greener towards the top and a little bit bluer towards the bottom. So I do think there is some subtle difference, but they are pretty close. I mean, there's certainly not a clear demarcation here. So those are my knits and what I'm working on. I want to work on a million different things, but I have projects lined up sort of until they come out of my ears. When I finish Roxy's sweater, I have selected a sweater for Miles, her brother, who is my nephew, and they both have birthdays a week apart in October, so I am working on their birthday sweaters now. So I have yarn for Miles' sweater, and I have picked out a pattern, so that will be kind of the next sweater on my needles. I have another box of samples on their way to me, and then I have a million sock projects I would like to knit. I have the green socks, which I still haven't started. Those are socks for Knit the Rainbow. I'm going to make a donation this fall, so I need to get those on the needles. I found, when I was looking for something else in my stash yesterday, I found a skein of blue yarn that I didn't know I had, so actually I have the blue skein ready to go. It is worsted weight, so they'll have to be slightly smaller socks because they're not, I've been knitting with DK so that I get a little bit more yardage, but this is a gorgeous blue skein. It's from Hazel Knits, and I don't remember what I bought it for. I wish I could, but but I decided that it will make a great pair of socks, and so I already have the blue skein in-house, and I don't have to buy anything else, which is great. Actually, I might have purple too. We'll have to see. I might have some purple. So I have those socks to be working on, and then I did show you way back several months ago, I showed you some gorgeous gradient cakes that I wanted to use for socks, and I found the perfect pattern for them, and I really want to cast them on for myself, so that is also waiting in the wings. So that's 3 pairs of socks, 2 sweaters, a bunch of samples, and I would really, really, really like to knit a summer tee for myself. My dear friend Christine, who is Treasure Goddess Yarns, I have used her yarns before. She recently delved into the world of dyeing plant fibers. Up until now, she's only been dyeing animal fibers, and she dyed a bamboo and linen blend, which is absolutely lovely for summer, and she dyed it in a bunch of really fun candy colorways. And so I have been looking at patterns and trying to decide what I want to make, but she is releasing that. It's a limited edition. She'll be releasing it this Friday, I think, and so I wanted to buy a couple skeins of that and put together a summer tee. I don't know precisely when I'll knit it, but I am excited about it, so we'll see. And then the other thing I will say is that if my sewing machine is not back in time, is not fixed or back in time for Memorial Day weekend, I was thinking about casting on one of these other projects, maybe gradient socks for myself or the summer tee, because I would really like to, my husband is going to be out of town for Memorial Day weekend, so I'm going to be by myself for 4 days, and I would very much like to do a project that would be fun and just kind of not samples and not work, and so I think I will keep those in my back pocket just in case I can't sew. I had originally been planning to spend most of my time sewing and putting together the quilt, but we'll just have to see if that works. So quick sip of tea, and then I will talk about spinning, and then we'll move on. So I have been spinning a Tarhi bamboo silk blend from Hello Yarn called Night Owl. It was a club colorway from sometime last summer, so almost a year ago, so I don't think I'm spoiling anything. And it has been just lovely. I think I talked about last time that I wanted to try spinning on my treadle wheel again, so I've been working on it on my Ashford Joy, and you can see I tend to move my hooks, my sliding hooks, more readily when I'm working on a treadle wheel, and so this is what I have. It is yellows and greens and purples, and it's got this real bamboo often, because, okay, so bamboo is plant fiber. synthetic-ish. I mean, I guess technically it's synthetic. It starts as bamboo, but it ends up being processed as like viscose, and it's much more aligned to rayon. So this is plant fiber and wool and silk. And what I find about bamboo is it often, it doesn't blend the same way with the fibers. It also doesn't take the dye the same way as the other fibers. For the most part, it remains undyed when you're dyeing with acid dyes. Gosh, I'm getting into a whole world of things. So, animal fibers and plant fibers are dyed differently. Their molecules are differently receptive to dyes. So oftentimes when you are speaking of animal fibers, you are speaking of acid dyes. You can also use things like Kool-Aid and food dyes and some of those kinds of things. But generally when you're talking about commercially sold yarn, you are talking about yarn or fiber that has been acid dyed. When you dye plant fibers, you need to use a slightly different kind of dye. Those are usually Procyon dyes. And I don't know, I'm sure there is a chemical technical term about that, but I am not very familiar with plant dyeing procedures. So when you have a fiber or a yarn that is a blend of both a plant and an animal fiber, one or the other is not likely to take the dye very well, because acid dyes don't really dye plant fibers and Procyon dyes don't really dye animal fibers. So basically what ends up happening is that when you have a braid that has bamboo in it, you end up having these streaks of white that are basically undyed. And honestly, what that does to the overall braid in general when you spin it up is I think it tends to give it a bit of a frosted look. It mutes the colors just a little bit, but it looks almost like it's been, almost like there's frost on it, or almost like there's like a little bit of iced glaze on it. Like it's yummy, but it definitely softens it a little bit. So you can see that here. You can see that you can still see the little white bits even in the darker colors, and you can also see them in the lighter colors. And so this braid is going to it's going to maintain some of the darker colors. I mean, this dark purple, almost black is going to stay that way. But some of the other colors are going to almost look a little bit more pastel when you get to them, as opposed to, so this is how they appear in the braid. You've got like all these like bright golds, and you've got a little bit of green and a little bit of pink and burgundy and rust. So you've got like these kind of darker colors, but they're going to come across a little bit more muted in the braid itself. Anyway, this is the first 2 ounces of the braid, and I have maybe about an ounce left to spin on the second 2 ounces. And my plan is to hopefully get that done tomorrow and then maybe apply this on Wednesday. So this will be, and this is definitely going to be a shop skein. As I said, it is, I think it's 80% Tarhi, 10% viscose and bamboo, and 10% Tussa silk. It's going to be a lovely, lovely braid when it's done. My guess is it's going to be probably at least a sport weight. Looking at my singles, I did not test them against anything. I'm not really spinning a control. I just divided the braid in half. This one I divided up into very small strips. The other one I divided up into slightly thicker strips. Also, Adrian, who is Hello Yarn, doesn't dye her braids in a way that they are, so if you spread them all out in one long thing, and then you fold it in half like this, so you have basically 2 strips that are of equal length, and split it in the middle. The 2 halves are not dyed exactly the same way, so if you then spin those up and ply them, you will get a more interesting ply. So that is what I have done here. It's a little bit fractalish, but not really. I've just varied the thicknesses of the width of the strips that I'm spinning, so some will have very fast color repeats and some will have slightly longer color repeats. So that is what I am doing with this one, and I will be back next time, hopefully with a finished skein to show you. Which means it's time to pick a new skein. And I actually treated myself this year. I have been in the Hello Yarn Fiber Club for a long time. And in general, I've been in other clubs over the years, but I generally don't stay in them super long. I don't, so the more clubs I'm in, the more fiber I get each month. And I do tend to spin several braids a month, but oftentimes I am full up on braids. But I decided this year that I wanted to try, It's a new to me fiber club. It's not a new to me dyer. So I have spun some of her fiber before. I've just never been in the club before. Anyway, so this is the first selection, and I already got this 3 weeks ago now. So if you are in the club, you probably should have gotten it. If you do not want to be spoiled, I'm talking about the Northbound Knitting Club. So you can go ahead and turn away for a few minutes. But this is the braid that I got. So it is really pretty. And I'm sorry for the plastic. Let me open it and I'll tell you a little bit about it. It is a braid of Polworth silk, which is one of my favorite blends. Polworth is super soft, and then you can see the bits of silk in it. The silk doesn't take the dye quite the same way either, so you can see they're kind of chunks. It looks a little bit like the bamboo, although silk is an animal fiber, so it will take some of the dye. This is an 80% Polworth, 20% silk in the colorway Pansy, and so it is mostly white, but it has all these little bits of color in it, and I am curious how it's going to spin up. Again, it's probably going to be mostly white, and then it's going to have blips of color, and it's got some color and some speckles, and it's kind of a natural color looking, so it's not white. It is, even though it may look white in the video, it's actually very creamy. So it's definitely a natural color, but it's not like it has been, well, I suppose it might have been bleached, but it's a really creamy colorway. It is natural. So I'm very excited about this, and this will also be for the shop. This could be really fun. I don't know how it will spin. If it spins super thin, then it might be a really nice braid for a shawl or something fun. It could end up looking a little bit speckled, because there's just not a lot of color on the fiber, and I think that's going to create an interesting effect. But it is kind of a little bit of everywhere, so I really do think you will get a speckled. I don't think you'll have long runs of nothing with color. So, and that is the Northbound Knits Fiber Club, and she runs it. It's a 3-month club. So basically I am signed up for the next 3 months. So I got May, I'll also get June and July. And then, well, did it come in May? I can't remember whether this was supposed to be April's colorway, because it came a couple weeks ago. I made it for 3 months, so I will, at the end of it, I'll have 3 braids, and I'll decide whether I want to continue. I just thought it would be fun to kind of play around with again, it's not a new to me dyer. I am aware of her fibers. I have been for a while. She's also a tech editing client, but I wanted to try some of her fibers. So that is what I've got for you today. So I hope that you are having a lovely week, that the weather is fair to middling wherever you are. It's going to be a little cooler this week, which is really nice for us. Last week it was in the 80s and 90s, and actually running on Saturday, it wasn't as uncomfortable as it could have been because there was a breeze, but it was 75 at 7 o'clock in the morning, so it was not chilly. Anyway, I hope you have a wonderful week ahead, and I will talk to you again soon. I will say, as I always do, happy knitting, happy spinning, happy sipping, and I'll see you next time. Bye.